Hello, we're Board Game Opinions. My name is Jonathan Hicks.
I'm Amy.
I'm Nathan.
I'm Martin.
And this is our Table Talk video where we discuss hot topics in board gaming. And today's question is one that's very controversial, I have to say, which is how should you store your games? I'm sure anyone who's got any games at home has this issue of, well, what do you do? And you might be able to see some of the shelves at the sides here in terms of how I store my games.
Badly.
But yes, people do it very differently, don't they? So, shall we perhaps go down the line on this one and see, just briefly, in terms of your own personal collection, how would you store them?
Horizontally.
Okay.
Because that way the pieces don't fall all over the place for games that have got inserts.
Yeah.
And the lids don't come off.
And how about, obviously there's the horizontal and vertical thing, but also what about, like, do you put all the party games together, or do you list them alphabetically, or?
Big ones with big ones, and small ones with small ones.
So by size?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, boxes that are similar stack well.
Yeah, so mine are generally by type, as in if I kind of have a bit of here's some combat-y ones, here's some more Yuri ones, here's my kind of two-player generally ones, here's my party ones.
Yeah.
It lasts as long as I can be bothered to keep doing it, and I kind of end up resorting it after a few months, if you know what I mean. As for orientation, I lay them flat. I'd love to be able to do them all like books, because it looks so much nicer. But I think as I've got a lot of big box games, and that's just never going to happen.
Yeah,
it's like my Could Be Rising Sun on its side would be just not what it'd like. I mean, it'd fit, but it's not practical with a lot of things I do. Also, I think it ends up ruining the manuals. I think the components start them. Like if you've got the manual in there, I've got miniatures just pushing it and stuff around every time I pick it out.
Okay, I've not noticed that myself. Personally, in terms of horizontal or vertical, I couldn't care less. I don't know if you can see, but there's a whole selection of kind of gateway style games that are all stored vertically on that side. My big box miniatures games do tend to be stored horizontally, and there's definitely an issue, I think, more in terms of the miniatures all falling and crashing on one side. That wouldn't be good. And I think I'm with you. I try and sort it a little bit like a library in terms of categories. So I have my party games together, and my adventure games, and then my Euros, except the real limiting factor for me is the physical space you've got to fit them in. So I don't have the Kallax shelves, they're slightly different, and so it's a question of what will fit. If I've got a game and it's a small game, it will fit in the gap. Even if it's not an adventure game, it might just go in that section because it fits. It needs to go in somewhere. How about you?
Mine go wherever they will fit. There are games. No order. There are games randomly, frantically stored on top of each other. I have some vertical, and then there'll be some shoved on the top of it if there's a bit of space.
So even with horizontal and vertical, you wouldn't have a one kind of system in general.
Kind of switch them around. If it fits, it fits. If it gets in that cube, and all my games are on the shelf, then it's a good day because I am running out of space.
Would you prefer, for all of us, would you prefer to store them vertically if you can? Like Mark said, that kind of the book feel, is that?
Yeah, I really like that, but the components really annoy me. The fact that they do move too much, especially with things with specified inserts. I'm like, I've bought that nice insert, or it has a nice insert, and it feels frustrating for it to be ruined. But Quadropolis is a good example on that one for me, because I like to store it vertically. But
if it's a good insert, shouldn't it hold all the bits together though when you store it vertically?
I'd love it to, but it doesn't quite work like that.
So I'll tell you
it's not the laws of physics.
Yeah, in fact, right behind me, Grim Forest has a fantastic insert and stores really well vertically because it has this kind of clear plastic sheet on the top, which holds everything in place.
Yeah,
you can turn it
but
upside
that's
down
extra cost though, isn't it? Though.
Oh yeah, that's definitely an issue.
Yeah. I can think of a Archipelago where they told you to put the flat sheets that you punched out behind the actual the actual tray to push it against it, and that still didn't work.
I have had games where they say after you've punched out the cardboard bits, you leave the sort of empty cardboard underneath to keep it. That helps. Definitely.
It literally says that in the manual to do that. It's a part of it. Whack it behind.
Yeah.
I like to store mine horizontally because the writing on the side with the name of the game is oriented the way you can read it.
That is true.
Yeah, that is nice.
Do you store with books though?
But how high do you pile them?
But
as high
as they'll go in a Kallax square, which doesn't seem to be high enough to crush anything. I haven't had any problems so far.
As the way of sort of storing them in an order, I tried really hard to have them in weight order because I have a lot of different groups of friends that come over, and I'm like, don't look at the bottom shelves, they're
I thought you meant
too heavy for you.
how physically
Oh no, not
heavy.
physically. I mean, sometimes, yeah, the heavier boxes are good on the lower shelves for me, but like, I do kind of have lots of different groups of friends that come over for games, so it's nice for them to be able to glance at my Kallax and go, okay, only look at the top 3 shelves. Amy says the bottom one's off limits because it's games that are going to take 3 hours.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
And it's too much for me, and that's how I like to do them. But because I travel a lot with my games, I have bags in the boot of my car with games in for just in case circumstances kind of constantly.
Okay.
There's a lot of games that kind of get mixed about too easily, and then there's no system within like a week.
When I first started buying board games, I stored them on the top of a sort of clothes cupboard, if you like. But the clothes cupboard never really got used, and after a while, the games kind of
The games covered.
and they went into the cupboard, which was fine to start with because the clothes were kind of on top. So I had some games on top and some underneath the clothes. But after a while, out came the clothes, and the games just kept piling up. But there were no shelves in this cupboard. It was like meant for clothes.
Oh, gosh.
So literally, I had three stacks
Huge.
up to like height of a wardrobe of games.
Imagine trying to get something out.
I know, you'd have to do it in sections. You'd sort of take the top 4 or 5 games out, and the next 4 or 5 games out, until eventually you got to the one that was second from the bottom or something. It was terrible.
No.
Now, you actually work at the Dice Club, don't you? Our
Yes.
local board game cafe. How do they store the games? Because that's interesting.
We kind of have to store them flat because if we do have them vertical, then like from a customer point of view, some things I'll just put in random places all the time because fair play. And if that box is not then impacted with others, and not all of our shelves are chock full because we have a lot of different sections of the cafe.
Oh, I see. The space
Around them allows it to open, and then pieces are going to fall everywhere. And I would consistently be spending my entire work day putting pieces neatly back in boxes,
Yeah.
which isn't ideal.
And cafes generally arrange them. Do they do them by weight?
It depends. Some cafes do, some don't. Some have obviously a system, sort of like a catalogue of which games are where, and then they can look it up and say, oh, it's in M2, and then they'll look for that cabinet. I've noticed that some other board game cafes don't have a system, and you've just kind of
At all?
got to. I've seen multiple cafes with no system, and you just go in and you just look. And one game I wanted once was really high up, and I couldn't get it, and had to go and ask a member of staff to help me, and they physically had to go and get a ladder to go and get my game down because it was one of the lesser played games, and I was like, but I want to play it. I know that game, and I'd like to play it
So
right
by
now.
commonality, as in a number of times coming off the
Yeah,
shelf
so it's
almost.
actually they had some lesser played games at the top where staff had to get a
Popularity.
So what we really need is like a vending machine system. But obviously, it doesn't drop it, so it damages it. But it just you order it and then it reappears in the thing. You put it back in
a
again.
robotic arm.
Yeah, and it whacks it back into the. That'd be perfect. That's all we ever need ever.
So how do you think a board game cafe ought to store its games then? Because this is a slightly different issue, isn't it? 'Cause it's
Yeah.
not just personal
Yeah.
opinion, but you're actually trying to provide a service.
I mean, I appreciate why
Yeah.
it's difficult because ultimately boxes come in different sizes, shapes, and
Yeah.
sizes. Nice. You have to deal with it. Ideally, though, I guess if you go to a section like a section of Kallax, I want these games to all be similar-ish sort of weight.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, the variation number of people coming into the most important.
I think you want to store them by sort of broad category. So Euro games in one place. I'm not really bothered about the weight of them. For me, that doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
But
See, length of the game is another factor, isn't it? But
Yes.
Yeah.
you
No,
don't
it's
think
two-dimensional then. You kind of Kallax it and like, here's a
Yeah.
quick Euro, here's a long Euro,
And you
here's a
go
long
down
non-Euro,
and-
here's
Yeah.
Well, if you've got your shelves like this, you can do a 3-dimensional.
Oh gosh.
in like a cube.
Stuck in this cube
Yeah,
again.
but this becomes the game, finding the game you want to
Yeah.
play.
You spend a lot
I
of
think
time.
the main challenge for collections and board game cafes as well with organisational is small games. Small games are nightmarish
Yes.
to A, look neat and tidy, and B, have front facing. Because if I'm at home, all I've got is some of those like collapsible trays that go inside the Kallax and it pulls out, and I've just dumped
Dump them in. Yeah,
and
okay.
because I know what small games I've got. So if someone comes and goes, Amy, have you got coup? And I'm like, yes, I do. Rummage, found it. But if you're in a cafe, you need to be able to have them facing so that everyone can see exactly
Yeah.
what is on that shelf. And
That
with
is
a Kallax
difficult.
shelf, it's an issue because you waste a lot of space behind the small games.
Yeah, that's
and if
right.
you're trying to utilise that space, it can be really, really difficult. I've seen a couple of cafes do it really well, but they've used different shelves to Kallax ones because they are just too wide for small games.
Yeah,
Okay.
I need to build you a Kallax insert just for it's a small.
Yeah.
But the thing of our biggest problem with small games is like you're trying to find one, but there's about 3,000 in this space. It's like
Yeah,
text,
it's like,
text,
Yeah,
looking for the right colour on the side of the box and all that
it's
sort of
just
thing.
nightmarish, but some of the best games can be in lovely little boxes, and that's what makes them so brilliant. And you're searching for hours for something so little.
Well, there we go. What do you think? How should you store your games? And how should a cafe do it? Should it be different from how you do it at home? Do let us know how you store your games. We'd be very interested to see that. Thanks very much for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.